Project Management Toolkit. So in this video, you will be able to learn some kits that you can make use in managing your project, such as an action plan, the prerequisite project proposal, and the making of a Gantt chart. So it's going to be just a quick video, and I hope you learn from this clip. Let me start with this story of a fox and a wild boar. So a fox observed a wild boar sharpening his tusks. There appearing to be no imminent danger, so the fox asked, "Why do you sharpen your teeth when your enemies are not around?" The wild boar responded, "I would have no time to sharpen them if my enemies were upon me." So can you reflect for a 1 or 2 minute? What does this story tell you? Right, 1 minute is up, so it's basically telling us or reminding us that preparation or planning should be done way ahead before the trouble or begins. So in the story of a fox and a wild boar, the wild boar is preparing for that danger which, as mentioned by the fox, is not yet imminent, not around, but is doing it to prepare for that possible danger later on. So in project management, it's very key is always to be prepared and to make sure that you're ready when the time already comes. So for this project management toolkit, I will share to you some of the basic requirements when you plan and you make your action plan for your upcoming projects and or programs. So I will start with the prerequisites. So before you do make your action plan or your Gantt chart, you have to make sure that your proposal is already well planned. So when we talk about project proposal or outline, these are the basic requirement or elements. These are the program details, the rationale and brief description, intended learning outcomes and assessment tools, success indicators, budget proposal, tentative flow of program. So these are the details that you need to come up first before you make your action plan, or else you will be lost in which direction you are heading in your project management. So start with program details. So here you'll see an example of a project proposal. So this project is a Six Sigma Yellow Belt training. So just assuming that you're organizing a training, so the details should be complete. Where will you have the activity, which date or day, specific time, and type of activity. So it's asking, is it a program, an outreach program, a professional advancement program? Is it an academic program or a personality enhancement program? So for this example, this is a professional advancement program. So make sure you be able to identify what type of program you are doing. What is the nature of engagement? Are you the organizer, the partner, or the participant? It's good that you have to define first what is your role in that project. So if it's a partnership, identify yourself as a partner, not the lead organizer. Then you put the rationale. So the rationale explains why the project or activity needs to be conducted. It is always important to know why you're doing this. So in the rationale part, make sure you'll be able to write down or be able to answer why are you doing this? Why is it important? Next is a brief description. So in a summary, in a one paragraph phrase, what is your project or program all about? So how is it different to the rationale? It should discuss what the activity is all about. So the rationale is the why, the brief description is the what. Next is you go to this part, outcomes, assessment, task, and tool, and target performance. Let us do away already with just writing down the objectives. This time, you have to go to, with all these objectives, what will my participants be able to learn? Or what will they be able to do with what they know? So you list here, for example, your outcomes. What do you want the audience or participants be able to do after joining your project? So here, key is that it should be a verb, an action that participants will be able to do after attending your project or program. So for example, in this case, students will be able to recommend solutions to a company problem using root cause analysis, value stream mapping, and or agile manufacturing principles. So it's an action because they will be able to recommend solutions, meaning they will be able to apply what they've learned. And how do you know that they've really learned out from the session? So you have to set an assessment task or tool. What will you use for you to know the audience or participants achieve the outcome? So what tool would you use? So in this case, since it's a workshop, an example, you can have a case analysis and critical thinking rubric. So there's a rubric to measure what was learned by the participants. And here we also have a target performance. So you should also set a limit or a measure where you can say that it's successful, that the students were really able to learn, and based on your rubric, how much will you measure for the success of the program. So for your target performance, you can say maybe 60% of the teams will be able to submit a satisfactory case study with at least 70% of the rating. So by that, you can say that your program is a success because 60% of the teams got quality output. So it's not just about them being able to submit, but it's also them producing quality output for that event or workshop. Then you also have to highlight other success indicators. So how else would you measure for you to know that you're able to implement successfully your project? So you have here indicators and performance measures. So for example, in indicators, number of participants, how much you're expecting since it's a training or workshop, you'd be expecting less people compared to um, other activities. So for in-depth training can be at least 30 to 40 participants. Then mean activity evaluation, always make sure that when you conduct projects or program, there's always an activity evaluation. There's a measure to the success on the participant side because this part, outcomes, assessment, task 2, and target performance, this is your measurement of the success of the participants learned. So this is the organizer side. But for the mean activity evaluation, this is given or being provided by your participants. So on how much they saw, basically more on the organizing part and on the resources and content. So you have to have another evaluation for that through an activity evaluation. So I would believe that you already have your standard evaluation in your school, so make use of them. And then you put the proposed budget. So at one glance, they will see how much your project would cost. So for example, here, 10,950, but attach as well the detailed budget proposal. So just in the intro first page, you mention the project budget. And then you identify roles, who's the project head, the advisor, and the last one who will approve your project or program. So this is an example of a proposed budget attached and as well as your tentative program flow. Okay, so after this prerequisite, having a good project proposal, you can now work on your action plan. So what is an action plan? It is the layout of tasks you need to accomplish for a certain goal. So it divides the processes of reaching the goal into actionable tasks based on a timeline. So when we mean processes, we're talking about pre-implementation, during or implementation, and then post-implementation. So understand that there are 3 phases that you have to undergo in every project or program. So aside from just the planning phase, the organizing phase, the 5 phases, okay? So what are the key elements of an action plan? You have here the tasks, timeline, responsible person, or in charge. So these are the 3 important things when you do an action plan. I'll show you an example of an action plan. So it's simply assigning who does the work, what are the things to do. This is just a pre-implementation example, and the combination is the Gantt chart. What is the timeline given? So I'll share now an Excel file on how we do an action plan. That you need to undergo for a certain project, there are also 3 processes you need to face. Alright, so let's go to the steps in making the action plan. So in this Excel sheet, you will see that there are 4 contents. So I basically transformed the project proposal I mentioned as a prerequisite into the Excel file. So it helps you to not look over so many files. So at one glance, you will just have to revisit your data here. So usually we just have all files in Excel and then transfer them or print them via Word file for approval. So you have here your proposal, your proposed budget, your program flow. Then we do the action plan. So this is an example of an action plan for pre-implementation phase. Okay, just for example, if you are organizing a program. So these are just the basic activities when you do a program. So let's just assume a 1-week timeline for this one. So first is you need to identify what activity, with is it A, B, C, D, so the flow of the activities, who's the in charge for every activity, and what is the description, what does Rago Celion Lopez does So you have to describe what are their activities. Next is the estimated time in days. So what is your allowance for a number of days given to this in charge to accomplish this task? And then the precedent activity. The precedent activity is which task is dependent to another task before he or she begins. So in this case, the very first activity is not dependent to anything because it's the first activity as mentioned. So you just have to write there dash, none. And then for the next activities, so as you can see, activity B and C is dependent to A, that the plan should already be established, who does the work, and what are the target audience. Okay, so you are following A. And then activity D is following accomplishment of C. So you put here your precedent activity. Same is true with E and F. It can only be done if C is done. And then letter G, accept per registrants. This is when A, C, and F activities are already done. So unless one of which in the three is not yet accomplished, G cannot be done. And then the last activity is to buy food, snacks, and or kits. So it's precedent to G or the previous activity. Okay, so this is your action plan. So this is just a simple action plan again for us program. Okay, so next is you make the Gantt chart. So this is the Gantt chart which I usually merge. Usually what is done in an action plan is just write here the timeline. When is the deadline? But for ease of use, for you to not make many documentations, you can just merge already your Gantt chart. So you can see here is the implementation, for example, for 1 week, 15 to 20. So you fill in the first activity. So example, day 15 of June. Okay? And then task B follows activity A. So it should be 1 day after 15. Same is true with activity C, which requires 2 days but will be done after day A. So 2 days. And then you also have activity D, which can be done when C is already done. So there are 2 days for C, and then D requires 3 days, so you make the 3 days here. Next is you do E. E can only be done when C is done, so you have to do after the last day of C. 17, you can only do it on the 18th. Then F still is after C, so you can do it after this day, 17. So you can do it here for the 18th day. Next is your G. What is written here is should follow after A, C, and F. After A, so you cannot write here G because you still have a requirement C and F activities. So should be up to the last activity. So A, and this is your C and your F. So which means that your G should be somewhere here after the 3 sets of activities. And then the last one, H, is after your G. So that one. So that is in total, how many days? That's 6 days implementation. Okay, so as you can notice, I have left here a blank cell because the action plan should also be able to monitor what was it done in actual days. So which means that though you've planned to have 1 day, 2 days, 3 days for certain activities, how is it in the actual scenario? So you can monitor as the leader of the project. Shade this color, for example, for actual, this can be yellow. Okay, because there might be activities that require so much days to what was planned or require short number of days to what was planned. So it's good that you take note also the remarks. So why is it only 2 days? The materials are available, etc. You put remarks. Or why did this task took 2 days? Because the approval was being took so much time before it started. So you put remarks. Why is it important to highlight actual activities and then the remarks? So that you can use this as a reference to your next activities on how it was implemented. So you can improve on the way you set number of days to specific tasks. And then you'll be able to note as well of why this happened. Okay, that is your pre-implementation action plan already. It's the mix of an action plan and your Gantt chart. So if you're handling a project, again, it's bigger than a program, you would assume that this list is just a small number of activities. So you can list more of these. Okay, so be as specific as possible in your action plan, because the action plan highlights tasks, not responsible, like not by committee. So as you can see, I did not put here what committee. So it's not by committee, but it's by tasks. The very specific task should be put in your action plan. So if there are tasks that are handled by the same person, you can just put it here in the in charge. So you can identify as well here in the in charge the committee heads. Right? So that is the action plan, and then followed by you make your pre-implementation action plan and then the post-implementation action plan. Okay, so that would be all for the project management toolkit. So these are just the basic requirements a when you do manage your project. So you have to create the action plan plus the Gantt chart, and take note of the prerequisite requirement, which is the project proposal. What would really help you, which I cannot show now in the slide, is you can also make use of tools like MS Teams to manage your communication very well. Though it's very efficient for us to make use of FB Messenger, Viber, etc., but it's best that you also keep organized your communication. So in MS Teams, you can make channels or a group chat for your committees, and then you can also make channels for specific tasks to accommodate or to monitor. So you can make use of MS Teams, which we're also using now in our project management. So hope you learned something for this clip, and as practice, you can start thinking about one certain project that you have currently or you're currently working on, and then you create your action plan. Make it as specific as possible. So that would be all. Thank you.